What happened in Dallas in 1963? This question has been asked by many people who still have suspicions over the Kennedy and Oswald assassinations that occurred during that time. The reason for this confusion was because no one expected this tragedy to occur, and the evidence of this case was very vague.
It first began as a presidential visit in Dallas, Texas to repair the political views of the people of the city. Kennedy also wanted to raise money for fundraising affairs for the Democratic Party. President Kennedy's visit was first advertised to the public in September 1963. On November 22nd, President Kennedy was also involved in a motorcade, where all the presidential cars were lined up to drive him through downtown Dallas, where he appeared to the public. But what had seemed to be a harmless public appearance ended up being a devastating tragedy.
During the presidential motorcade through Dallas, President Kennedy was abruptly shot on the intersection of Elm and Houston Street. He was shot in the upper back and killed with the final shot to the head. Taken to Parkland Hospital after the attack, President Kennedy was pronounced dead at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. About 2 hours after the assassination, a suspect named Lee Harvey Oswald was taken into custody. Oswald was a former U.S. Marine who later defected to the Soviet Union. In 1962, Oswald returned to the United States. The reason why Lee Harvey Oswald was suspected for murder was because he was seen carrying what appeared to be a weapon near the scene of the crime. He originally was arrested for the murder of Dallas patrolman J.D. Tippit, later suspected for the assassination of President JFK.
After the death of President Kennedy, there were many assumptions created about this murder. The reason for this was because no one knew the true suspects of the crime at the time because of the chaos that had occurred. Many were unaware of the multiple shots that were fired, giving the assumption that there was more than one gunman involved. Adding to the confusion, many did not know the location of where the shots were fired as well. With all this unknown proof, many people created theories about the murder of President Kennedy. Oswald was being transferred to the county jail. A man named Jack Ruby stepped out of the crowd and shot Oswald, striking several organs. He was rushed to the Parkland Memorial Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 1:07 p.m. Central Standard. As the shooting occurred, the entire event was broadcasted on live television.
Now here's an interview of Jim Hudson, who was present at the time of President Kennedy's assassination.
About the day, and how old were you?
The day John F. Kennedy was killed, I was 14 and 3 months. And I was in the 8th grade at Benjamin Franklin Junior High School in Dallas, and I had just completed my history test for 8th grade history. And every week, me and my closest buddies in that class would get a note from the teacher, and we could go down to the library and goof off for the remainder of the hour, which is what we did. And on the way down, I said to my friend Robert, what if we could maybe get out of school legitimately and go down to the parade and see Kennedy? And he said, that's a great idea. So we went to the office, and there were other kids in there already doing that. And they said, if we can speak to both parents, the mother and the father, and get the permission, then one parent can come and get you and take you downtown, and they'll have to agree to bring you back to school. So his father agreed to pick us up, and 4 of us went. And when we got downtown, when we left school, it was raining, cats and dogs. It was cold. And when we got downtown, it was still raining, and we knew that the bubble top on the car would be up, and we probably wouldn't see him, but our main interest was getting to go downtown and go to the magic shop and go to the penny arcade and eat a hamburger and goof off. And that's what boys did and at 14. And all of a sudden the sun came out, and it dried up, and it got warm. And we had about 30 minutes before Kennedy was going to land. So we had this great idea. One of our other friends' dad was a manager of one of the big department stores, and we went there and went to the television department and watched them land at Love Field and progress down through the Oak Lawn area to the head of downtown where the parade was going to start. We said, let's go down and get on the street so we can see him. So we went straight out onto the street and we pushed our way through the crowd so that we were actually on the street. And most people were supposed to stay on the sidewalk, but we were out on the side of the street. And the parade started coming. And it got closer and we saw the flags, and back then there was so little air conditioning that people were literally hanging out of the buildings, legs hanging out of the buildings. Confetti was falling, and it was really a neat thing to see. And here came the presidential limousine, which was about a 1960 Lincoln Continental stretch limousine. The top was off, and there was President Kennedy. And I was on his side of the car. And when he got right to us, I yelled at him, "Hey, Mr. President!" And he turned and looked at me, and he pushed his hair aside, and he waved. And he went down the street, and he made a right turn into Dealey Plaza. Well, that's where the turkey shoot had been set up, and that's where Oswald supposedly was, the assassin. And he made another left right there in the plaza, and the shots rang out. We were hearing the Harley-Davidson police motorcycles backfire. They backfired a lot back then. We probably heard the gunshots mixed in with that, but we didn't think anything about it. But all of a sudden, people started going back in, because back then the newest invention was the small transistor radio. And people were hearing stuff on the radio already that the president had been shot. So we went back in to, two of the boys' fathers had memberships at a men's club downtown, the Dallas Athletic Club. And they had a TV set on the second floor, and we went in and we watched. And just about that time, they interrupted the television show that was on, and they announced that President Kennedy had been shot. Well, I immediately realized we were not going to be able to get out of downtown that day. And all of a sudden, downtown was cleared. No buses, no taxis, no nothing. Sort of like lockdown. Mm-hmm. I thought, I want that first newspaper, because they used to have a newspaper that they would just circulate downtown. I went downstairs and bought a newspaper for 10 cents, and it already said, "President dead." That was within 30 minutes. We still have that newspaper. And it was like an eerie old black and white science fiction movie. There was not one soul in downtown Dallas, Texas, except me. There was newspaper kind of tumbling. Nobody in sight. It was the freakiest thing I'd ever seen. So I went back upstairs and called my mom. I picked up the phone. Well, all the phone service was, you couldn't get a phone line out. Mm-hmm. Because the Secret Service had seized the phone lines in Dallas because they still hadn't caught Oswald. They still hadn't caught the assassin. That's why they had cleared the streets. There were no buses or anything, no cars, no nothing. So we just stayed up there and watched the TV, and I tried to call my mom. No phone service. And the operator said, "You need to get off the line. There is no phone service. All of the calls are being routed to Washington, D.C." Back then. Back then you had to call an operator to make a long distance call. Mm-hmm. We did not have area codes yet. They came later that year. But that's basically what happened, and then the rest of the day we spent up in the Dallas Athletic